All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is the end of the week. It is Friday, August 14th. A little bit of a snoozer, I would say, for today. We'll talk about today's price action in just a second and some strategies. We'll talk about, kind of looking ahead a little bit. But let's talk about this week's performance for a minute. S&P did finish up for the week, but a little bit of some slower moves. I think the last couple days in particular, a lot of kind of exploring the recent range. But up for the week, up 0.7%, so just under 1% for the week. Diamonds up 1.9%. Small caps, remember the small caps were up 6% the week prior. Well, they still finished up for the week, after following up after a big week, but just kind of ran out of steam a little bit. The Qs also, all of these except for the diamonds, up, but less than 1%. EEM also up less than 1%. Looks like international developed markets, EFA, was up 1.8% for the week. That outperforms. There was also a big inflow in the sister fund of that ETF, IEFA, had a pretty decent sized inflow for the week. And then big moves in bonds and gold, both off pretty decently. TLT down almost 4% for the week, and gold down 4.3%. We spent some time. I'll just kind of rehash a little bit about what we talked about in the member Q&A session. There were some questions, and I even have gotten a couple questions on Twitter about because I've made comments about bonds going down. Does bonds going down does that mean that equities are going to go higher? No, absolutely not. And if you look at a couple charts over, by the way, everything I'm going over is for information purposes only, not giving out any recommendations or advice, anything of that nature. But all you have to do is about 30 seconds of analysis to kind of figure this out. If you put up two charts, TLT and here's SPY. Here, we'll do this. SPY, since I did this exercise earlier, but why don't we do SPY over 10 years and TLT over 10 years? All right, so we'll do this. We'll do TLT, and let me just pick this here, 10 years over here. All right, so you tell me, if we put these charts together somewhat. All right. All right, you tell me if one goes up, if one goes down, the other one goes up. I don't think it works that way, folks. They both can go up over time. And the one caveat I would say to that is when volatility is really high, people do rush into the safety of bonds a little bit. But what I'm talking about is when the VIX is around at least up over 30, maybe even 40, 50. Similar to what we saw back in March of this year, right? When equities went down, bonds outperformed a bit, right? Now they also moved around quite a bit too, but you could see, right, this big dive in equities, and TLT did have a crazy move there too, but did overall hold up better. So don't get that into, it's funny that people will ask this question when they could go on their own and do the same analysis in like 30 seconds. It really is that easy to basically look at two charts over 10 years, and you'll find that there's not that relationship where one goes down, the other one's going to go up. And you could even see it for the week, right? This big move down in bonds and big move down in gold didn't mean that there was a reciprocal move or an opposite move in equities for the week. All right, so I hope that helps a little bit. I feel like I've been doing a lot more, trying to teach a little bit because there's a lot more newer traders that are involved, and that's fine. I do like to teach. But also, some of these things are so easy to figure out on your own that, I do laugh a little bit because they are really simple questions when you just do the you do the quick analysis yourself. What performed the best for the week? Kind of interesting. The energy stocks were the best performers. OIH, XOP. I don't have a lot of these names, to be honest with you. But they finished up transports, right? We know that the rails did pretty well this week. UNP, things like UNP did very well. Also, FedEx and UPS really, really strong. Steel was up. So a little bit different. Industrials, right? We talked about industrials a lot during the during the beginning part of the week. Kind of interesting week. Like I was saying, I've said a couple times that this week, I thought this week went by quicker because there was less events, less earnings to kind of go over and so forth. No Fed meeting or anything like that this week. But there was really, like, if you look at the beginning of the week versus the middle to the end, there were some different things that went on. But I will say this, as we were going through some charts in the Q&A session today, there's, while the beginning of the week was more about, you heard all about the rotation into value and out of growth. That kind of, then we saw growth names bounce back a little bit, and especially Wednesday and Thursday. But some of these more value type areas, I hate to classify, I hate saying value versus growth because there's a lot more going on there. But something like the industrials ETF kind of consolidating around here. And I think, we went through a bunch of different charts. One of the names that I traded last week was UNH. And this UNH, you have to zoom out a little bit. And you could see this thing is breaking out pretty decently. So again, you don't have to categorize these things as value versus growth, because one of the points I would make is that I don't want to particularly, just because people are talking about value having some momentum, I don't want to jump into all value names. I don't necessarily want to be all in growth names either. I want to be in whatever is kind of setting up nicely on a chart. And I think this UNH looks pretty interesting. Again, it's a little bit of a slower mover, so you kind of have to think about how you're going to play that. But we talked about a couple other names too today, like Dollar General. Again, a couple of these were member picks, but Dollar General is still just slowly coming out of this coil. And again, you have to be patient with some of these things because I tried trading some of these things. I think I tried Dollar General in here, and it gave this false move, then went back into value, came out of value, back inside value, and now back at 52-week highs. So, trading around it too, right? Having a partial position, buying on those red days, and then taking some off, obviously, into green. That's kind of the way that some of these names that move slower, if you're a little bit more tactical in how you're trading them, that could help a little bit, right? Knowing that these things are in uptrends and basically just coming into the to the uptrend line. So again, that's of course easier said than done. In hindsight, hindsight is 2020. But this looks a little bit different to me than some of the high growth names, which I'm not exactly sure which way these things are going to go in the next week. Shop, I've mentioned this one many times this week, and I think Shop could come down to 942. Like, that's in the cards, and I think this would be a better place to buy it. But it could also rally too. But right now, the look is a little bit different with some of these names. Some of them obviously look better than others. We talked about Amazon a few times too. Amazon, I think you have to be patient. I put out a chart of Amazon last night, and some people were telling me like it looks like death. It's horrible. It's horrible. I'm like, what looks horrible? I'm like, it doesn't look horrible to me. You just got to be a little bit patient. I had the same kind of thing happen to me too recently, where people are telling me that the market is getting smoked. And I'm looking and I'm like, what are you talking about? The market's like flat, or it's down like 10 basis points, meaning 0.1%. So it could be. So let's talk about this for a minute. Why are people thinking that the market is getting smoked when it's really not? It's just basically there's a lot of chop on the tape and there's some digestion going on. So why are people thinking that? Well, it could be a couple different things. It could be that some traders are positioned, just have too much on their books, right? They're overexposed. Because if you're seeing like, maybe it's your P&L fluctuate just as the market comes down a little bit, and I'm not talking about down 1 or 2%. I'm talking about 1/4%. If your P&L, in my opinion, is fluctuating that much on a quarter, let's say 20, 1/4%, then you may not be positioned the correct way. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think this is a valid conversation to have after we went out, after we went over today's performance. Let me bring, this, by the way, is the performance for the day. Theme of the day, I would say, is chop. I left this up from yesterday. August to October, this is really important. And I think this is a very hard concept. So let me try to explain this. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what we're going to do for the next couple weeks, next couple months. But I've mentioned a couple times this week too that, in my opinion, August and September are a little bit trickier to trade. And if you think about it logically, it makes a little bit of sense. A lot of people go on vacation in August, right? So they're not doing the normal buying. They're playing a little bit of defense, right? They're hedging, they have some hedges on, but there could be a couple reasons why August is a tricky month, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we go down either, right? So I put down here 3 different market directions, right? Now we've been seeing a lot of this, and if we go over with the S&P chart, oops, that's not the S&P chart. That's the S&P chart, right? We've had a really nice run. So put this in perspective. I think that some traders are forgetting how easy, and I don't want to say easy because that's a bad word, but if you're doing what I'm doing, which is basically sticking with the trend and capitalizing when the market trends, right? That's basically where I make a lot of money, is when the market's trending. But I have to be cognizant of when that kind of stops, right? So let's forget about this whole move, right? Because I know that everybody, we've had that in focus now for a while. But let's talk a little bit about last year, right? And what happened. Well, first of all, this is why I keep saying that we've been in a blessed market, right? Look at what we've done over the last month or 6 weeks. We've basically done this. Look at what we did last year during July, right? We had a significant check back. We had, and at the end of the day, meaning months, weeks, months later, we ended up higher after this. If you look at November, where we were, but we had, some checkbacks, right? We had a check back to the 200-day moving average, and we had some consolidation back and forth days, which were a little bit hard to trade in August of last year. We rallied and then we checked back again. So the reason why I throw this in your face right now is just so that you could have some realistic expectations. Because I'll tell you what is not normal. This is not normal. Straight up moves. And I love these moves, right? And I hope that we continue to do that, right? Like we did here. But at some point, you're going to get some type of a check back. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, but have this, be a little bit prepared. Be prepared for something other than this outcome, right? I love this, right? This is great, straight up. But it's not always going to happen that way. So think about these, and again, as a risk manager, right? I always quote, one of my favorite guys to quote is Paul Tudor Jones. He always assumes every position that he has on is wrong, right? So you have to assume a little bit of this stuff, right? And then if this happens, awesome, great. But just because you're thinking about this doesn't mean you're going to, you're still, like, in my opinion, I've got positions on, and I've got definitely positions on that, will work with this happens. But I also have to think about this and about this. Now, it's important to know that this is actually sometimes harder than this. When we just go flat like we did today, it really depends. I know a lot of people trade options, right? If you're trading options, and by the way, we're doing a webinar next week on this. We'll talk about option strategies and we'll talk about stock strategies. I've done a couple of these webinars before, but we'll just expand upon it. But if you're if the market does this for a couple days and you're in option positions, right, and you're basically long deltas, you basically have calls, and we do this, it's going to hurt you, especially if you have a lot of positions on and a lot of short-term positions on. Okay, so be mindful of that. Right, I think people experience that a little bit today. When the market doesn't move, you have big theta decay. And I put this chart up earlier, but I'm not going to put it up because, you could just Google, theta decay. And basically, if you're holding options less than 60 days, the clock is, the meter's always running against your positions. So especially like if we end up doing what we did this week, a couple days where, we're plus or minus 10 basis points. Again, the market's not getting smoked. Your positions may be getting smoked because you're holding short-term options. Okay, so just something to be cognizant of about. I'm not telling you what to do, but if this continues to happen sideways, if you own short-term options, they're going to do this. If you own stock positions, then it's really like not a big deal for you. But it can make or break your P&L for the week and for the month. So I try to share these things because I've been through this as a trader, and I've learned over the years where the market didn't do anything, and I'm like, geez, why is my P&L down so much? Am I really getting smoked that bad? No, I had too many positions on, or you had too many short-term positions on, right? So that's a big thing where newer traders or newer traders to options have a really difficult time not understanding how they function. So it's just the mechanics of how they work. Nobody's doing this to you. It's not the algos. It's not some secret dark force. It's not, because that's where I think traders fall back. Newer traders, they're, these algos. It must be somebody doing this to me. But it's not. It's your responsibility to know that the market does this. And I'll tell you, what I see on Twitter a lot is right now the market's doing this, and people are acting like the market is doing this, and that means you just have too much exposure on. All right, so that's a little bit of background, and I think on a day where things didn't really move too much, and I'll tell you, I don't have a lot of these oil and gas names. That's the way I would think about. Now, again, you can make up your own conclusions about what you think the market's going to do for the next couple weeks or the next 6 weeks. And again, I'm not predicting anything because I don't know, but I do have some experience, and I think that as said, that August is a little bit more difficult. So keep that in mind. Your job is to, when the market is not trending, and again, we have no sell signal here, right? So I'm not saying that we have any sell signal or anything like that, but your job as a trader and as a risk manager, if you've made a lot of money at certain points of the year, when the market is not in the same climate, your job is not to give that money back, right? And ways that you could do that are, number one, don't have as many trades on. Number two, don't have as many option trades on. Maybe just trade stock in that time frame. All right, so those are a couple things, and I think that traders are so focused as well on Twitter, looking for the next stock setup and so forth. Yeah, we'll find those. Like, that's my bread and butter, right? But you have to be able to take what the market is giving you, and sometimes the market isn't going to give you the perfect setup that particular day. Joe Fahmy, who I like to follow on Twitter, he said he's great with jokes, so I'm not sure if I'll repeat the whole joke, but the beginning of what he said in his tweet today was, don't short a dull market. Right now it's a little, the last couple days were dull. And again, it's also because we've had a tremendous run the previous, couple weeks. So put things in perspective, and don't worry, we will find the setups. That's what we do. But you have to wait until the setups are there. Sometimes as well, that all it takes is a couple days of consolidation, and then you start seeing setups left and right. So, bottom line is from this video is number one, have a great weekend, and relax, and make sure that you get some. If you're going to take, this is also a great time to take vacation too. So don't be afraid to take vacation. I took vacation last week, and you come back recharged and ready to go. But if everybody else is taking vacation, don't feel like you're going to miss something by taking a couple days off or getting away from the screens. It gives you really good perspective. So that's another thing. But bottom line is just be patient, and realize too, right? I did this exercise earlier for the Q&A session, but realize that we are in August and there is a lot of trading left for the year, right? So don't get focused on like 1 or 2 days. We're in this for the whole for the whole enchilada, right? So don't let a couple days, even if you had a bad day today, or if you had you thought this week or one particular day was frustrating, or even next week, keep this whole thing in perspective. Our job is to have profitable months, right? We had a killer June, July, August. I'm up nicely. My job is not to give it back, right? September, October, November. We got a lot of trading to do. So put this in perspective, relax, and learn a little bit without getting yourself, into too much trouble if the market does do one of these different scenarios. All right, guys. So I didn't really talk setups. We'll talk setups when, obviously, when I put together the member video. I do see some setups already materializing, but if they don't come out, jump off the page at you, the trades, then realize the market may just need a little bit more time to find those setups. It's all part of the process, guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.